Today I'm going to talk about an interesting restriction on the use of constructions like this one.
I was riding a bicycle when it started to rain.
First though, let's just explore this kind of construction a little bit. You're probably familiar with the pattern A was happening when B happened. And of course, that's a common construction in English. In constructions of this kind, when joins two pieces of information together by connecting them at the same point of time. One thing was happening, I was riding a bicycle, and another thing happened, and it started to rain. But when can also be used to show two things continuing together.
I was riding a bicycle when it was raining.
It isn't specified which thing began or ended first. All we know is that the two things continued at the same time. Rather than indicating a moment of time when something happened, the word when here shows a duration, something that continued over a period of time. When can also be used to talk about something happening within a broader time frame.
When I was living in London, I rode a bicycle.
Note that when we're talking about a period of time like this, a duration, we often use while instead of when. When and while express the time relationship between two things, but sometimes we need to use our common sense in order to understand that relationship perfectly.
When I was living in London, I rode a bicycle.
Riding a bicycle is a fairly common activity, so we probably assume that the speaker customarily used a bicycle rather than a car or public transport to get around London.
When I was living in London, I saw the King.
Seeing the King is an unusual event, so we would probably assume that this only happened once.
When I was living in London, I shared an apartment.
In this case, we probably assume that the speaker shared an apartment during the entire time that she was living in London, or at least for a large part of the time. Of course, it doesn't have to be that way. The speaker can always add more context. I rode a bicycle once. I saw the King twice. I shared an apartment for a week and then moved out, or something like that. But we'd use our common sense knowledge of the world to tell us whether it was a one-off event, a repeated event, or something that continued over a period of time. Notice too that we can change the order of the two clauses. I rode a bicycle, saw the King, shared an apartment when I was living in London. So, okay, those are the basics. Now let's look at that restriction I talked about. Once again, this is the basic type of construction. I was riding a bicycle when it started to rain. Now let's look at these two sentences. I was riding a bicycle when you ate sandwiches. I was riding a bicycle when you ate the sandwiches. The first sentence sounds very odd, and yet the second one is okay. Why? The only difference is the addition of the word the in the second sentence, so that's where the answer must lie. So let's explore the use of the. How does the change the sentence? Well, you ate sandwiches tells us about an activity. We don't know how many you ate or whether you did it once or more than once. It just tells us that you were engaged in the activity of eating sandwiches. As soon as we add the, we're talking about some specific sandwiches, sandwiches the speaker supposes the listener knows about. If the listener ate the sandwiches, that means that those sandwiches have gone. The same would be true if we used a different determiner like my sandwiches or 3 sandwiches or some sandwiches. And there are various words we could use to describe this. Steven Pinker in his book The Stuff of thought talks about holistic activities, that is, activities that have a wholeness or completeness to them. I like the word complete, so rather than holistic, I'll use the word completive. You ate the sandwiches is completive. We're talking about some particular sandwiches, so there's a fixed amount of them, and after you eat them, they're gone. You ate sandwiches, on the other hand, is open-ended, non-completive. There's no fixed amount. We don't know how many sandwiches there were, or how many you ate, or anything like that. Another way of looking at it would be to say that you ate sandwiches is an open-ended activity, while you ate the sandwiches is a closed action. You can eat sandwiches all day, but once you've eaten the sandwiches, they're finished. So, what have we learned from all this? Well, we've learned that in this kind of construction, the second verb should refer to something completive rather than something open-ended. We don't usually talk about completion in English grammar, but it can be a useful concept. It explains why we say, for example, he filled the glass with water, but not he poured the glass with water. Filling is completive. Once something's been filled, it's full, and the action is over. Pouring is non-completive. We can pour more or we can pour less. So there's a whole interesting area of language we can explore here, but that's something for another video.